Well, hello there. This episode of the Human Body for Fitness is going to cover blood pressure. Now, before I get started on this, a lot of people have heard that having muscle mass in and of itself is harmful. That the reason why BMI, which is a measurement of your body weight over your height in meters squared, it's a measurement of your overall health. And the reason why people were used to be excluded for health insurance is because it doesn't matter if it's body fat or if it's muscle, it's still just as likely to kill you. Now, anyone with a brain is going to think that doesn't make any sense. But the point is that a 30 BMI is obese. Whether you've got a 2% body fat or a 50% body fat, you're still obese if you have a 30 BMI, and that would be used to exclude you from health insurance. And the premise was that having muscle was just as hard on your kidneys. The reason why is because they use creatinine, which is basically a modified version. Once it gets in your aqueous solution of your bloodstream, creatine gets converted to creatinine, and the creatinine is what's used to determine your kidney functions. Now, obviously, your creatinine really doesn't have anything to do with your kidney function. It could, but it doesn't necessarily. That the premise is that your kidneys aren't functioning, so your creatinine value is higher than 1. So they take your GFR, glomerular filtration rate, of 100 and they divide it by your creatinine. So if you've got a 2 creatinine, then that means that you would have a 50 GFR, and that means that you've got stage 4 kidney disease. Now, does that mean you really have stage 4 kidney disease? No, they didn't test your kidneys. They tested your creatinine value in your blood. So what also increases your creatinine values? Well, what increases your creatinine values is eating meat. So if you're a bodybuilder and you eat 2 or 3 pounds of meat a day, all that meat has creatinine in it. If you lift weights, then you break down muscle tissue, which releases creatinine into the bloodstream. If you have higher muscle mass than average, what's average? An average person, male, has 20 to 30 pounds of muscle. Average female has 10 to 20 pounds of muscle. So let's say someone like me who has 100 pounds of muscle, you would think that I have 3 times as much creatine in my body, so I must have a higher than normal amount of creatinine. So my GFR has tested as stage 3 kidney disease for over 10 years. It doesn't matter how much gear I run, it doesn't matter how much I weigh, it doesn't matter how much I lift. I've always got a 72 GFR because I've pretty much had the same diet for the past 10 years. I've eaten about 2 to 3 pounds of meat every day. Cholesterol has always been great. The HDL is low depending on if I'm using androgens or not, but the LDL is always super low. So one would assume that I don't have any plaque formation with a low LDL, and we'll do a separate video on cholesterol, of course. But I wanted to get this out of the way that the blood work that's done on kidneys isn't done on kidneys, it's done on creatinine. And creatinine is really a measurement of your muscle. Just like ALT and AST have nothing to do with your liver most of the time, it has to do with your muscle. So the reason why I'm mentioning this about blood pressure is that the other assumption about having big muscles is that it causes your blood pressure to go up. And the reason why is that blood pressure is measured by crushing the arm. So if blubbery arm of 16 inches takes X amount of force to compress, don't you think that a rock hard muscular arm of 16 inches takes more force? Muscle's denser than blubber. So therefore, that as someone gets more muscular, not only does their arm get bigger, it gets denser. So one, they could use the wrong size cuff. They could use a woman or a kid's cuff on an adult man's arm and get a false positive for hypertension. They could determine that you have a high blood pressure rating. The other thing is that even if they use the right size cuff, it takes more work to compress muscle than blubber. That healthy people, bodybuilders, don't go to the doctor. All the blood work, all the hypertension values, all the data they have ever collected was off of women and old people. That 70% of patients are women, and the other 30% is pretty much, you could say it's men, but the vast majority of patients are elderly or already sick. So either sick men, old men, or women make up about 90%. Kids make up about 5 to 8%. So like you're looking at 2% of the people that they've collected data on were healthy adult men who exercise. So that's why everybody who lifts weights is marked down as having kidney disease. Everybody who lifts weights is marked down as having high blood pressure because they're measuring it in a shitty way. Even in med school, they say that the blood pressure measurement, even though it's the most commonly used way to determine someone's health, is a shitty way of measuring because you're externally squeezing down on someone's limb. And depending on their tissue type and the size of the limb determines a different reading. Now, one thing that I have found, obviously the correct way to do it is to measure internal pressure of an artery, is to thread a catheter in, but then you have to go to a cath lab and it's too much money. Plus, they don't want to prove you're healthy. They want to prove that you're sick so that they can prescribe you medication. Now, back when I started med school, that the normal cutoff was 139/89. That's normal. Now they've dropped it by 5 points every 4 years or so that basically now the normal is like 119/79. So what they say is because they keep lowering the cutoff for what normal is, more people fall into this hypertensive 1 or hypertensive 2 range. So then they say incidence of hypertension is going up and prevalence is going up. So if every time they drop it 5 millimeters of mercury, every time they go from 139 to 134, well, now if you've got a 135, you've got hypertension. You've just included a couple million people that were actually healthy yesterday, but just because you changed the cutoff, they're now unhealthy. Same thing goes with if you cut the cutoff down again. So rather than them cutting the cutoff 20 points and having a huge spike in incidence, they did it by 5 points every few years so that when they graph it and show it to someone, they can say, look, hypertension's on the rise slowly over time. It didn't change. It's that they've lowered the cutoff to include more people in the diagnosis of the disease so that they can show people, look, people are getting increased blood pressure, hypertension's on the rise, so then they can prescribe more medication. Now, the medication doesn't actually usually prolong the life expectancy of the person who's prescribed it. The medication doesn't improve the quality of life. They also tell people that hypertension have an unknown cause. Now, I'm going to read my hypertension article to you because I can't say it better than I've already said it because I'm much better at writing than just talking off the top of my head. Oh, before I go further, the one way that I found that measures your blood pressure accurately if you've got muscular arms is a wrist measurement. Typically, they read 10 points higher, but in me, when I had 13.5-inch arms, I had like a 110/70 blood pressure. Okay? I had a resting heart rate of like 40. Now that I have 17.5-inch arms, I have a 140/90 blood pressure. Actually, 140/70. So it went from 110/70 to 140/70 by adding 4 inches up to my arms and decreasing my body fat like 3%. All right? My wrist measured 117/70. So therefore, there's a 30-point difference? No. It's that's how shitty the measurement of the arm is. So anytime you're diagnosed with high blood pressure and they measured your arm and you're a muscular person, you know that they're full of shit. They just want to sell you pills. Or they're so stupid, they don't know any better. There are no studies comparing people with muscular arms versus people with fat arms of the same diameter. There's none. They don't want to prove being healthy is healthy. So they want to convince you that having muscle mass is hard on your kidneys by using bullshit methods like creatinine and hard on your heart by using bullshit things like a sphygmomanometer rather than having accurate measurements of your blood pressure. So, high blood pressure remedies by Dr. Todd Lee. All right, what is blood pressure? Blood pressure is a measurement of the internal pressure inside the blood vessel, arteries, veins, capillaries, arterioles, etc. If the blood pressure is high, you can cause damage to the inside of the arteries, resulting in plaques of cholesterol and damage to the kidneys, which will subsequently make the blood pressure worse. Basically, as your kidneys get damaged from high blood pressure, they can't filter out stuff as much, so you get worse blood pressure. HTN, or hypertension, high blood pressure, is the most common disease in the world, and 95% of HTN is of unknown causes. Or is it? I'm going to quote this journal because the concept is so ridiculous, I can't help myself. Although no direct cause is identified itself, there are many factors such as sedentary lifestyle, stress, visceral obesity, potassium deficiency, obesity. More than 85% of cases occur in those with body mass index greater than 25. Salt sensitivity, alcohol intake, vitamin D deficiency, and increase the risk of developing hypertension. Risk also increases with aging. Some inherited genetic mutations and having a family history of HTN. Keep in mind, if you're fat, your family's probably fat. All right. Enzymes, an elevation in renin, an enzyme secreted by the kidney, is another risk factor, as is sympathetic nervous system overactivity, insulin resistance, which is a component of Syndrome X, and the metabolic syndrome is also thought to contribute to HTN. So nothing causes it, but that's a list of causes. So it's idiopathic hypertension, but there's a list of causes. Sounds stupid, doesn't it? So by not expecting someone to take responsibility in their disease and implying it's random chance or God's will, doctors have created an ignorant, dependent culture that believes the only treatment is a pharmaceutical drug. HTN is not caused by HTN pill deficiency, but we know that actually did cause the HTN, then we could treat the real disease, the one that gave the person HTN, whatever it may be. In almost all cases, the disease is avoiding direct confrontation with the truth, being that most people in 2015, that's when I wrote this, are willfully ignorant and lazy. Strong words, but they have tremendous merit. Basically, my syncopation was weird because I was reading that out loud. But the point is the reason why they lie to people and say they don't know the cause is because there isn't one cause. There's a bunch of different things that can cause it. Although 85% of the time when someone has high blood pressure, they also happen to be fat. And when they're not fat anymore, they don't have high blood pressure anymore. So you can't sell someone a diet, but you can sell them pills. So that's why they basically lead people to believe that there's no treatment except for these pills. That's basically what that bitter paragraph was about. So I'll address each cause and how it's correctable. So cause number one, because that was a very important journal article from the NCBI database that said it's caused by nothing, but here's a list of causes. So cause number one, sedentary lifestyle. You're lazy and out of shape, so your body isn't that healthy. Treatment, stop being lazy. Go to the gym. Lift weights like a bodybuilder. Okay, number two, stress. Adrenaline is released in stress, as well as in noradrenaline. Noradrenaline prefers to bind to the alpha-1 adrenergic receptor and causes vasoconstriction. It also increases chronotropy and ionotropy, I believe, to some degree. By decreasing the diameter of your blood vessels, you increase the pressure. Think of putting a thumb over the opening of a hose. You see in your mind the water spraying out, not pouring out, right? That's a great example of stress and blood flow pressure. Treatment, don't be so stressed. Cut worthless people out of your life. Then all the needy ones next. Then don't do things which stress you out. Someone wants a favor and you don't want to do it? Say no and get 8 hours of sleep. All right, treatment number three. Visceral obesity. This is fat around your organs that will kill you. Treatment, lose fat. Hypokalemia. This is Greek for low potassium. Potassium is an intracellular electrolyte. It is low. The sodium in the blood draws the water out of the cell, and thus the person has fluid overload and increased blood pressure. Treatment, use sea salt. It has less sodium and has potassium along with a lot of other electrolytes. Basically, sea salt's the shit. It balances out everything. Obesity. More than 85% of hypertension cases occur in people with BMI over 25. Wow, So there's no cause, but almost everyone who has hypertension have a high body fat in common. How could this not be clear? Treatment, lose fat. 6, sodium imbalance. Table salt and sodium suck all the water out of your cells, such as muscle, and drags into your vascular system, driving up your blood pressure. Most physicians recommend a low sodium diet, but this is garbage as well. The kidneys just keep the sodium you do consume, and these low sodium diets don't work well. Treatment, use sea salt. It is perfect balance of minerals and electrolytes for you, so use and drink lots of water. If someone doesn't like it, then give them a Colombian necktie. 7, alcohol intake. There are a few biochemical mechanisms that cause hypertension from alcohol intake, but in the end, it's pretty obvious alcohol is worthless. Treatment, go to AA. If your drinking is causing health problems, by definition, you're having consequences from drinking, and if you have consequences from drinking, you're an alcoholic. All right, 8, vitamin D. Off the top of my head, I would attribute this to either low testosterone from vitamin D3 levels being too low, or the function of the vitamin D on the kidneys, and the kidneys are involved in renin production, which modulates blood pressure. Treatment, 2,000 IU of vitamin D every day, which is, we got vitamin D3 in Freya's garden, and also there's vitamin D3 in Thor's hammer. Aging. As you age, things start to not work so well due to cells dying off to prevent them from converting to cancer cells. Over decades, the tissues are brittle and the glands release less hormones. In the case of vessels, become brittle and weak, and the heart has to work harder and faster to get the same amount of blood pressure. Treatment, implementing all the proper lifestyle changes to slow the aging process. Basically, eating right, exercising, using the proper supplements, training, etc. You know, one of the most important things to slow the aging process is growth hormone. And there's certain things that cause natural growth hormone to be released, found in nature. And I've put those into dragon dreams to help you get more sleep and release more growth hormone when you sleep. Thor's hammer to get all of your hormones perfectly running for men. And Fenrir's Fury pre-workout to get the growth hormone up and running pre-workout when it's most important. Metabolic syndrome, syndrome X, diabetes type 2. These are sugar-coated words, which means that the person has so much body fat, it's killing them. Every metabolic process in the body is clogged with bacon grease. Treatment, lose about 30 pounds of fat, and your body will become insulin sensitive again. Thus, you will heal the damage you did to yourself. In Battle Mead, I put in things to increase insulin sensitivity. Now, in this article, which is High Blood Pressure Remedies on toddlemd.com, in the required reading section, I then list 50 or something different herbal remedies that all improve blood pressure. I'm not going to go over them now because it's already an 18-minute video and you're probably bored as hell. But you can go click one of the links to see what the list is of things you can do. Aside from fixing what's broken, you can actually take stuff that will help a little bit. But simply put, if your house is on fire, you should put the fire out. You shouldn't think about what to change the drapery to. So to me, the fix is always fix the problem. Don't take a bunch of supplements. That, yes, I did make supplements. I do own a supplement company, Valhalla Labs. I designed all the products, and I included lots of good, healthy crap in those products to accomplish goals. But that doesn't mean that eating like shit is ever going to be corrected by taking supplements. You can't supplement a horrid diet and make it good. You can supplement a good diet and make it better. So if you need help with your diet, you can hire me as a coach. The same website, toddlemd.com, has coaching packages on the homepage. Training programs are either in the Dr. Lee's required reading section of the same website, or if you get a coaching package, there's a training program along with it. That if blood pressure is a concern and you want it lowered, I can help you with that. Typically, it's a lot simpler than that. Every and anyone who does the diet and training program gets great blood work. Their blood work either gets improved or it becomes amazing, and their doctors say, oh my God, this is the best blood work I've ever seen. What are you doing? Oh, I'm just listening to Dr. Lee. They show the diet to the doctor, and the doctor says, this is the best diet I've ever seen. every time, same thing. That doesn't mean show it to your nurse friends. It doesn't mean show it to your psychiatrist. It doesn't mean show it to your pet psychologist. It means a real doctor will be able to appreciate how these things would actually work. And the articles and videos usually have NCBI studies backing them up, just like this one. So again, toddliamd.com to correct your high blood pressure. Check out the article. Hire me as a coach if the article is not super duper clear. For the products, for the growth hormone package, if you're a man, Thor's Hammer, Dragon Dreams, Fenrir's Fury will improve your growth hormone output. That'll make you live longer, age slower, according to studies done on growth hormone, and these ingredients have been proven in studies to increase growth hormone. Same thing goes for Battle Mead. Battle Mead includes a bunch of ingredients which lower insulin sensitivity and improve insulin sensitivity. So that should reverse or help you reverse your diabetes syndrome X or metabolic syndrome if you are actually doing everything else right to correct the issue, which is always obesity. In the end, if you're obese, the problem is always that you're obese until proven otherwise. Genetics do not really factor into it. That's a myth doctors have made up so that people don't feel they're responsible. And since they're not responsible, there's nothing for them to do. And since there's nothing for them to do, they're helpless. And since they're helpless, the doctor then can swoop in and save them by giving them pills. And the pills don't really fix the problem. It's like Jack and the Magic Beanstalk. Jack comes home and the mom's like, where's the cow? And he's like, I got these magic beans. She's like, what the fuck do you need magic beans for? The cow has tons of meat on it. These magic beans are nothing compared to a cow. And he's like, yeah, but they're magic beans. She goes, the fuck they are, and throws them out the window. And in a fantasy story for children, those beans turn into a stalk that goes up to clouds, and there's a giant castle and a golden goose. In real life, those beans don't do a goddamn thing. That the magic beans, the pills the doctors give you, are not going to do a goddamn thing if your eating and your training is off. Anyway, have a wonderful day.